What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the NLL Flash. My name is Tino Fera, and we are here to get you set once again for another week of National Lacrosse League action. Week 10 is coming up fast. I can't believe we're already here at Week 10. It's flying by. After a massive Week 9, there were a ton of unreal games, just a ton of unreal matchups. But we're here to get you set for week number 10. So buckle up. We have ourselves a huge episode. As always, before we get into it, not necessarily as always, but it seems like it's a trend lately. We have some transactions to run you through that have happened since the last time we spoke. So let's go through them real quick. I'm just going to go down the list here in chronological order. The Riptide traded defenseman Leo Sturris to the Firewolves for defenseman Curtis Connolly and a draft pick. Before that, the Firewolves traded defenseman Adam Bomberry to the Bandits for forward Thomas Vason. The Bandits also traded defenseman Marcus Minicello to the Wings for a future draft pick. And then finally, this is the big one. It's massive here. After their 20-7 loss last weekend to Panther City, the Warriors, after already losing Logan Schuss in that game due to a lower body injury, it sounds like he's going to be done for the rest of the year, unfortunately. They would go on to release defenseman Justin Salt, release goaltender Ethan Woods, and then they would go on to trade forward Mitch Jones, arguably their star forward, to the Philadelphia Wings for defenseman Steph Charbonneau and a pair of draft picks, all in that one package. And then on top of that, a day later, they signed former goaltender Aaron Bold to come and be a veteran presence or a mentor of sorts to Aiden Walsh. So the Warriors all over the news circuit this week for all of their transactions. The NLL announced the return of its Every Child Matters initiative a couple of weeks ago, a 3-week league-wide initiative. We're currently in week 2 of 3. Initiative to bring awareness to the forcible placement of Indigenous children in residential and boarding schools by the Canadian and U.S. governments. The initiative includes educational programs for athletes, coaches, staff, and fans, land acknowledgement ceremonies, and charitable and social responsibility programs. Players across the league are wearing a specially designed warm-up shirt featuring the Every Child Matters logo, which fans can purchase for themselves via the NLLshop.com or NLLstore.ca, with proceeds benefiting the Gord Downey and Channy Winjack Fund in Canada and the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition in the U.S. All right, it's time for us to look ahead now to the Flash game of the week. We went back to you guys, the fans, the viewers, the listeners, to help us decide on this one. So we threw a poll out, and you guys came up huge once again. Not much of a surprise here, but 67% of you gave us the rematch that we've all been waiting for. 2 weeks ago, the Knighthawks played host to the Bandits. This time, it's going to be the Bandits playing host to the Rochester Knighthawks. That's the 6-1 Knighthawks taking on the 6-2 Bandits. So that game is coming in on Saturday, February 4th, 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern at the KeyBank Center. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for contributing to the Flash Game of the Week. Time now for the part of the show where I get to talk a little bit less and we bring in a guest to help me preview our Flash Game of the Week. And for the second time this season, we have somebody who's preparing for the games themselves. So welcome in Ian MacKay of the Buffalo Bandits. Ian, thank you so much for making time for us this evening.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Fired up for it.
Love when the guests are as fired up as we are. That's unreal. All right, let's just hop right into it. So talking about the Bandits here, aside from the week 1 loss to Albany, and then a couple of weeks ago, your guys' loss to the Knighthawks, who you're obviously playing in week 10 here, it seems from everybody's perspective like the Bandits are back in full force, like we've been used to seeing them. From your vantage point on the turf, are the Bandits back in full force?
I think we're getting close to it for sure. I don't know. I wouldn't say that we're there quite yet. Using training camp and the first part of the season just to kind of get comfortable a little bit with each other. There's actually a lot of new faces for our team this year from last year. So It's still getting used to guys and their tendencies, and our depth has been challenged a little bit this year with some injuries. So it's good to see some of the younger guys and newer guys step up into bigger roles. And like I said, I think we're still just trying to get comfortable with it with one another. But so far the wins are coming so far, so we're excited with how the season started.
I'm glad you brought up the depth because that's one of the questions that I got written down here. So I'm just going to kind of go down a list with you real quick. So you guys have started the season without Chase Fraser. Chris Kluche has missed some pretty significant time. And Josh Byrne left with an injury last weekend as well. So the depth is, like you said, certainly getting tested. How do you guys continue to try to find that next man up mentality and still find success?
I think it's the coaching staff and the leadership group kind of just putting confidence in some of the younger guys that are stepping up, and some of the guys playing in positions that they might not be used to. So, it really is that next man up. Obviously, I think I saw Chugger mention that as much as you want to say that, when you lose a guy like Josh in a game, it's really hard to fill those shoes. I don't know if anyone can jump through the air like he can. Maybe just Jackie Moon, but he's a tough one to replace. Kluge is obviously such a dynamic player as well, and such a big inside presence for us. And then, I mean, Chase is Chase. You miss him for all the goal scoring and as well as the theatrics that come with it. So, but I think that's a product of how much lacrosse we've played. If you look, since we've come back from COVID, we've been in 2 PLL finals and an NLL final, so it's a good problem to have making it to those. I wish we had a couple more rings to show for it, but it's a lot of lacrosse that's been played, and I think it's kind of showing a little bit. Knock on wood that it's not coming my way anytime soon, but that it's been impressive to see guys, like Brad McCulley stepping up. Brandon Robinson has been huge for us and a really big pickup for us. And guys slotting in on the DN, just picking up Adam Bomberry. Dylan Robinson has been unbelievable for us for being a rookie and just kind of jumping in after only playing a summer of junior after a few years off and playing hockey. So it's really good to see, and we got a really tight knit group, and it's a fun group to be a part of.
I'm sure in preparation here for the rematch against the Knighthawks, you guys must have watched a little bit of film of their loss last week to Halifax. And, Halifax obviously did a great job with them, holding them to just 7 goals. I believe that's the lowest they've put up all season long. So is there anything that you guys can take from what Halifax did well last week against the Knighthawks into your guys' matchup this weekend against them?
To be honest, we had practice last night. We haven't watched a ton of film on them yet. More so, our Wednesdays are kind of looking at our mistakes from the previous game and correcting those, and then guys on their own starting to watch film today, tomorrow, and then Saturday morning shoot around. We'll go through some more, but I think if you look at Rochester, where they're being successful. Connor Fields is having an unbelievable year so far. Tony can shoot the ball like crazy. Ryan Smith is a deceptive, a quick, big guy, and has a really good shot as well. Hogarth picks up everything in front of the net. So, I don't think there's any secrets necessarily there. And now that we have a game under our belt, and we kind of tested out a few things, we can make our adjustments that we feel we need to make more so than kind of worrying so much about them. And I think after practice and getting back together last night, we're feeling confident going into this weekend.
Obviously, you guys are super familiar with Connor Fields. He's played over in Buffalo for the last handful of years before this season. How do you shut down Connor Fields? Is it a little bit easier for you guys, seeing as you know him from the past handful of years? Like, how are you going to handle what he's put up so far this season?
Yeah, well, it's It's funny. It started today when I walked into the gym and I saw him there. So I just ignored him right away. But he's still working out. He's still in Buffalo, living in Buffalo. So we see him a bunch, and he's still working out at the same gym that we all work out. So we cross paths every now and again, and throw some subtle chirps and jabs at each other. But it's all in good fun. But he's such a dynamic player, and he's a really slippery player. And he's got one or two different moves that um, you kind of already know what he's going to do, but he's so good at them that he finds a way to make it work. And I think a lot of it for our defense is listening to Vino, and trying to set Vino up for as much success as possible, and putting Fieldsy into spots that Vino wants to see those shots, whether it's Fieldsy, Catoni, Smith, whoever it is. They all have kind of their different skill set, and at the end of the day, Vino's the 8-time goalie of the year, and the one who's making the last save. So whatever kind of the motto of our defense is, whatever Vino says goes. So we'll listen to him, and try to put those guys into spots that V wants to see them.
We know you're a big team guy, obviously, but I want to ask you about your individual play so far this season a little bit, because you are kind of a rarity in the NLL with your two-way ability. Obviously, you can lock it down defensively, and this season especially, you've been putting up some offensive numbers with some of the injuries. I read this stat earlier that I think you just got your first power play goal of your NLL career this season, so I'm pretty sure you filled up every stat line to this point at least. But this season specifically, what do you attribute to the amount of success you've been having so far with your loose balls, the points you're putting up, just your overall game? What do you attribute that success to?
I mean, how much time do you guys have? I could go on about this subject for a while. I will bite my tongue a little bit, but for me, I think a lot of it's just being comfortable. I'm kind of getting a fourth year into the league now, and get more comfortable with the guys that I'm playing with, and the competition, and the high pace of the game. And not that I haven't been confident myself before, and kind of whether I've had the green light to push transition or not, I've always kind of done that anyways. So but I think, something for me, and what I talked about with Chugger and JT kind of at the end of the last year, and at different parts of last year, and kind of going into this year, was, the transition is going to come. Like the game's just going that way naturally. And, it's something that we stress as a team is to win the transition battles in games, but excuse me, but not to go looking for it. Like I said, it's going to come with missed shots, with there. See, I'm already getting ahead of myself with rebounds, and trusting the guys on the defense. And I've really wanted to focus my game this year on being defense first. And a goal of mine was to try and lead our team in loose balls this year, and to try to beat a guy out like Steve Priolo, who's consistently at the top of the league in ground balls, is a pretty lofty goal. And it's something that I just want to be a loose ball hawk kind of. I admire Zach Courier's game. He's a good friend of mine, and I love watching him play. And he might be the best at it in the league. So watching some of his game and trying to pick up on nuances that he does, and but just really trying to focus on the DN first. And it's kind of funny. I think I've only really had one, maybe two transition goals this year. I've had a bunch of chances, so I probably should have a couple more goals than I do. But a lot of my goals and my points have been, when I do push the ball and end up staying and settled offense situations. But you mentioned that I like to pride myself on being a team guy, and like I talked about earlier, the injuries that our left side has seen, and then trading Thomas Basin and Josh going down last game. It was kind of, just whatever the team needs, and I'll do it. I was joking around at practice last night. I had a different jersey on, or different color jersey on, just in case. And I told Teddy, our equipment guy, to give me Burnsy's jersey, because try to fill those shoes. But like I said earlier, I don't think that's possible. But
Well, I'm glad you brought up the loose ball goal of yours as well, because when I was looking up the stats today, you are currently ahead of Steve Priolo. It's a pretty slim margin. You guys are 1-2, but you're meeting the goal so far with some games left. The last time, a couple weeks ago, when you guys were playing the Knighthawks in the first matchup of the season, I asked our analyst that was on the show a really simple question, and I want to ask you the same thing just to wrap up this segment here. What has to happen for the Bandits to be successful this weekend against the Knighthawks?
I think it's got to be a full 60-minute effort. I think last time we played them, we were up on them most of the game, and it was a really back and forth game. I think we might have been tied at half going in. I can't remember exactly, but it was a back and forth game. But it kind of felt like we had the upper hand on them the entire time, and right until the fourth quarter, and probably a 12-minute stretch or so. So if we can kind of close that gap a little bit and put in a full 60-minute effort that we know we're capable of, I think we'll set ourselves up. And an Achilles heel of ours recently has been the penalty box, and I think that's kind of Buffalo's MO. And we like to play with that chip on our shoulder and push that line and cross it sometimes if need be. But I think we've been crossing it a little bit too much recently, and so if we can stay out of the box a little bit as well, I think that that'll help our case out too.
Ian, thank you so much for making time with us tonight on NLL Flash. Good luck this weekend, and good luck the rest of the way.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks again so much to Ian MacKay for joining us to help us preview his game this weekend against the Knighthawks. But there are 7 other games for us to go over quickly with you guys. Again, it's a big weekend. A lot of these games coming in at the same time. So as always, break out the iPads, break out the monitors, get the screens ready, because it's going to be a busy one. So we're just going to go down in chronological order here. The lone game on Friday, we have Georgia. 0-4 Georgia, still looking for their first win of the season at Colorado, the 3-2 Colorado Mammoth. So that game's coming in 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern at Ball Arena. Now we move over to Saturday, an early one for us over here on the West Coast. Calgary, the 3-3 Roughnecks, taking on the 4-3 Halifax Thunderbirds in the Nest in Halifax. 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern at the Scotiabank Center. Then at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, we have the 1-5 New York Riptide heading on down to Toronto to take on the 5-2 Rock. That's at the First Ontario Center. Also on Saturday here, the remainder of the games here are all on Saturday. The 2-3 Albany Firewolves are going to head over to the Wells Fargo Center to take on the Philadelphia Wings, the 2-4 Philadelphia Wings. That's at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Then the next game after that, Panther City 4-3 heading over to San Diego. They're 5-1. They are rolling here. 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern at Pechanga Arena. Then we have Saskatchewan, the Rush, taking on the Vancouver Warriors, the sort of new-looking Warriors with all their changes coming in. First game without Mitch Jones. That one's 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern in Rogers Arena. Wrestling night in Rogers Arena. Going to be a fun one, I think. And then the final game of the weekend, Colorado's second game of the weekend. So we'll see what their record is coming in to the late game on Saturday. They're going into Vegas to take on the 1-5 Desert Dogs. That's at 7:30 Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern at the Michelob Ultra Arena. All right, a quick thank you once again to Ian MacKay for joining us here for this episode of NLL Flash. And thank you again to you guys, the viewers, the listeners, the fans, for tuning in to another episode of the NLL Flash. Week 10 is going to be a huge one, and I know I, for one, am excited. I'm sure you guys are as well. So on behalf of all of us here at Flash, the entire production crew, and myself, Tino Fera, thank you again for watching. We'll see you next time.